Next we have Nate with implementing NPCs in Word Wizards.
Yeah, so I worked on the MQP World Wizards. Basically, it is a virtual reality world builder made in Unity, where the user is placed in VR and they can place tiles by pointing their Vive controller and sort of construct these 3D environments of whatever that they can imagine.
Ooh, like this.
Yes, like this. The project is all about user-generated content, so you can include your own tile sets of, space-themed, deep dungeons, whatever that you prefer. Particularly, my involvement in the project has been implementing a platform for non-player characters that the users themselves can implement.
So by implementing, do you mean these NPCs they place and they go and do their own thing autonomously, or is the player invited to script their behaviors and alter how these NPCs are interacting with the player, or both?
Yeah, so a big goal of mine from when I started the project was giving the user the ability to edit the personalities or the behavior, sort of script the patterns without them actually being technical users and having to write code themselves. I solved this by making a curve editor where they can essentially tweak the behaviors of the AI, not by writing code, but by editing these curve functions that control which actions they're going to take.
We were talking about this a little bit beforehand, and can you give us an example of that? I mean, you did beforehand, but that was a good example. I think we should talk about now.
Exactly. So one example might be I'll start by going back a step. Basically, you take two actions, or take an action in a context. An action would be something like an attack, and a context might be the amount of allies that are nearby. And you can map these two variables against each other with a curve. So if you are high on health, you would have a high willingness to attack. As you become critically injured, that might fall off. But what's really great about the curve is that you can intricately adjust to however shape that you want, how it performs. So rather than just, some more like binary behavior trees, you can actually really edit how exactly you want the character to act.
All right, so I'm gonna so it's all about the hardball questions, especially in AI, and Graham's the AI expert here. But in gameplay design, in NPC AI, I find that it's tough sometimes to code this intricate AI with all these curves and so forth and so on, and the player just doesn't notice it. How do you deal with that?
Yeah, so an AI is basically as good as the user understands it. If it doesn't seem like it's smart, it might as well not be smart. So a really important thing is observability. You can see this in games like The Sims, where they actually show you what the AI is thinking, which is a great way of having the player understand that.
You're basically talking about tells. That's like
exactly.
AI 101 barks.
For my project, I don't think I made any innovations in that area like The Sims, but I think you can definitely find a relationship between adjusting these curves, seeing how it plays out, and when I tweak this, they behave in a different way. But I understand the question. Yeah.
Interesting.
No, good answer.
So, given that you can mess with these curves and create really interesting kinds of custom situations, have you found that playtesters have actually wanted to create very erratic, not curves, but like spikes all over the place to create very indecisive NPCs? And is that something that's fun for more than a minute or two?
So the problem with my system is that it's really hard for the user to have an idea of the behavior that they want in their head and to be able to directly create that in the game. A lot of the time what happens is you play around with the system and you sort of come up with this emergent behavior that you then end up liking or attributing to the character.
Well, that sounds like it's its own kind of mini-game then, of its own kind.
It is a challenge. That's a big challenge of utility AI, is that the AI is only as good as the programmer can, or the designer. So it will only ever be as smart as they can figure out how those curves become. A solution to this is using machine learning or neural networks to train your AI, and then you can produce results that are far beyond the limit of a human.
But then you're also removing potentially a playful sandbox element of design here.
Exactly.
Or gameplay
That
here.
is sort of a separate region that is,
Yeah.
is outside of the scope of this project.
So you talked about curves and utility AI. Those are ways of like choosing between different actions that an NPC could take. What are the actions that NPCs can perform in this world? What's the context?
So I wanted to get sort of a proof of concept model, and I took a big focus on combat. So I implemented the action of attacking, the action of regrouping, and the action of fleeing. And in the context of health, a score of nearby allies and a score of nearby enemies. So this is just a 3x3 matrix. It can be expanded, and as you expand it, you end up with an exponential amount of potential connections.
Right.
As you increase this, you basically get like an unlimited number of possibilities and ways to design the AI.
Well, only a few of them are going to actually be successful, right?
Yeah, so the system that I made allows the user to pick out and map the specific relationships that they find interesting. For example, some characters wouldn't want an attack versus the amount of eggs that are nearby them, or
Right.
It's very specific and up to the user.
Well, so you mentioned emergent behavior. What has emerged that was surprising and interesting?
What has so just like throughout the working on the project? or-
What behaviors on the part of the AI, if any?
Something that I didn't take into account was how the characters would interact when placed together. So basically, I sort of pictured each character when I was making them alone, and then as soon as you put them in groups, all sorts of emergent stuff starts developing. And unfortunately, that is a whole different problem for the designer to solve, because they need to make an AI that's good in small groups, they need to make an AI that's good in large groups, and an AI that's good in every situation that's going to be in. So it's more work for the designer.
Interesting. Is there a way in your system to like script sequences of actions, or to say like this is a precondition to this action?
Yeah, so you're talking sort of like about like a hierarchical model?
Yeah, sort of.
Or more like scripted behavior?
Yeah, more closer to a behavior tree, I guess, is what you're...
Yeah.
Yeah, or just your approach to solving that problem. Right.
So I wanted to have the experience for the user to be like really elegant, and I might have sort of overstepped myself and tried to make it too easy and too simple. It's a problem that you can't just make, as easy as placing Legos or something. It really is a complex problem. So to answer your question, I'd say no. I tried to just keep it to the curve editor and go from there. Whether or not I can convey some of that hierarchical behavior and scripted stuff,
Right.
probably is not going to happen with this system.
I mean, the nice thing about AI, or the thing about AI, is that you have to design it specifically for the game you're making, right?
Exactly.
You can make a sort of generalized framework for that, but it really comes down to what works in the game that you're making.
And the hard part about that with this project is it's not a specific implementation, right? The
more of a
point
sandbox.
of this
Yeah.
is to be a
I
sandbox.
like the idea of a but that's just the programmer in me playing around with stuff.
It seems like that's the game.
To me, that's the game.
Yeah,
I love it.
Like making your NPCs run away if there's a bunch of eggs in the world, like you were saying. Like that sounds like this guy's scared of eggs. That's
I
great.
kind of like it. We got a 1 minute. Dean's like 1 minute, and we're down to 45 seconds.
So
we got.
yeah, 45 seconds left. Where would you take this from here?
Yeah, so this project is basically a platform that could be used as an education tool. It could be used as an actual developmental engine. It could be used in all sorts of different fields. It still needs a lot of work. With characters out of the way, I think another good area would be to work on, I'd say, improving the tile system and adding like a play mode. Right now it's sort of just that construction sandbox, but integrating, being able to put the characters in and then having like a gameplay experience that is like the backbone of it. A game like Neverwinter Nights is a good example of it has a game, but it's also the sandbox. And right now World Wizards is kind of missing the game.
So that's MQP2.
Keep them coming.
All right. Wonderful. We had 10 great projects. We have Dean. Are you going to take us out?